By now, I think you all know the drill. We're coming in close to 150 digital releases, bonus items from the back catalog, merchandise discounts, supporter-only specials. This all starts at only $4.99 a month. What we're talking about is The Swamp Records. Go to www.theswamprecords.com to get in the Swamp Krewe. I mean, you've got a ton of artists here. Green Hog, Opium Warlock, Pure Sonic Outcast, Lunar Swamp, Frog Lord, Death Gang, Veltjet, Dos Brujos. There's so many. Crow Ballard. I mean, I don't even know. I can't even name them all right now. But I do know that if you just bump it up a bit to $6.99 a month, you're going to get a limited, exclusive CD each and every month. Shipping is included. There's a bonus CD when you sign up. The first month is free. What are you waiting for, man? It's time. Get in the Swamp Krewe now. www.theswamprecords.com/doomtomb. This is the Doom Tomb Podcast, a podcast for all things stoner, doom, and sludge. And today we get into part 2 with Burn Ritual featuring Jake Lewis. And now that I think about it, well, it's just Jake Lewis. This second release, The Void, is a solo project of sorts. And, you know, a few months ago, you had the digital release, some CDs, some cassettes. Now we finally get some vinyl through Cosmic Artifacts. There's 2 types that are going to be available. There is a red, white, and black splatter, and also a transparent red in 180-gram vinyl. Ah, yeah. Can't wait to get that in my hands. All right, let's get to it. This is part 2 with Jake from the band Burn Ritual. Tranquilized. This was, first off, I thought that this was a rather unique solo. And I thought that the vocal was probably one of the highest in of all the tracks, which brings me to a question for you. Do you feel like you're personally getting more comfortable vocally?
Yeah, yes and no, I guess. You know, with Burn Ritual, because I have 2 projects now that I think both kind of have legs, is what I call it, you know.
Sure.
Lucky enough, when I did Gypsybyrd, I really didn't have any idea what anybody would think about it. I didn't know if anybody would like it, but it was one of those things where I just said, I'm going to put it out, and whatever happens, happens. But lucky enough, it really got a lot of love out there, and right. So, but I do feel at Gypsybyrd sometimes I can utilize a little bit more of my own natural voice. Sometimes in Burn Ritual, I'm not saying I'm faking things, but I do play up to some things because the music is obviously heavier, and there's a lot more. I always kind of I think those bands, Burn Ritual and Gypsybyrd can kind of both do their thing, but I think they're also kind of separate, because obviously I think Burn Ritual is heavier and darker kind of, and I kind of make Gypsybyrd was my outlet to kind of do some real heavy psych and like some psychedelic rock and
1000%, man.
Yeah, experiment with a lot of keyboards and stuff. And so with that being said, yes and no. I am kind of, I think with any singer, I haven't been singing that long, actually. It's been something that kind of came later in life. I've been playing drums for the longest. I started out as a drummer when I was 15 years old,
right?
And I played drums in a lot of bands, and then picked up guitar later. And then as you learn guitar, you can kind of mess around with some bass, and then vocals came later. But so yes and no, but it's still one of those things when I'm writing and recording. Sometimes the first, I click record and I start recording the vocals for the song, whatever said song it is. And sometimes it takes a while to shape it up because I won't, I'll be like, oh, I don't really like that or what have you. And then, I think vocals are a very unique. I have a lot more respect. Let's just put it that way. I have a lot more respect for every singer and vocalist I've ever worked with in a band because it's fucking hard, and, you're not always, I was just talking to my stepmother about this the other day because she's a singer and, you have to be sometimes in a certain mindset or vibe because, guitar, drums, or what have you, you could be in a pissed off mood, happy mood, or whatever, and sometimes you just go lay it out. But sometimes you have to be in a certain mood that fits the song to get it across vocally because, not you have your bad days and good days, I think, singing, because I know I could sing a scratch track vocal on a song and I'm like, damn, I like that. And then like later on I try to, record a couple lines with it and I'm like, damn, I can't, reach that same vibe as I had 2 weeks ago, what have you. So it's fucking hard. Yeah. So yes and no, I guess, to answer your question. Sorry if that's not.
I totally understand. I mean, it's like, look, when you say, I don't think anything's really fake. It just is what it is. Vocals are, it doesn't matter. Like, okay, I know I've heard Bruce Dickinson talk. He doesn't talk the way he sings.
Right.
It just does. So it's fine. And I'm just in awe. Like, okay. And one of the reasons I ask, and then we'll get back into these last few tracks, is there is an artist out here there in Arizona. And they put out this little demo kind of EP thing, and it's heavy and it's sludgy and the vocals are grimy and dirty and heavy, like just like real guttural, I would say.
Yeah.
Now they have a full length album that is pretty much in the can right now, and this guy's vocals are so good. Like, I'm blown away by it. The person that is mixing and creating the record, or mastering and et cetera, he sent me some of the tracks, and I'm like, who's singing? Who is this guy? And he tells me who it is. I'm like, and the thing is, I don't know if he's exactly confident in whether it's good or not. Well, I'm gonna, I'm saying it on the podcast right now. It's that good. When this comes out, and I don't want to blow up his spot, but whenever it comes out, man, this stuff is. I can't wait to see it live. I can't wait to see him sing it because it was like old school cartoony, wide eyed. Like, wait a minute, I can't believe it's him singing. It's anyway. And that's what I hear, and that's why I had to ask you that, because on The Void, I felt like you were, instead of, in relation to Blood of the Raven and like Suffering, it's like you like, this is it. This is me. And maybe some of it was through Gypsybyrd as well. Like, you had that outlet, you created it, and now you can come to this and even stretch further. And that's the one thing that I really enjoyed about hearing The Void. Is you're stretching, and at times maybe uncomfortable, but I think you making yourself uncomfortable brings the product out and makes it sound that much better.
Well, I appreciate that. Yeah, I think that with vocals, I think a lot of people can sing and they don't know it. It's one of those things that you have to find your voice sometimes. I know I've tried to sing quite a few times over the last couple of years, even going back. I've always done recordings for a long time. Even when I was in other bands, I would do something on the side just for fun, and I would record the vocals, but I was never really too stoked about my singing. But it was one of those things where you just keep doing it till you kind of find your voice. And I think my voice tends to be, I guess, on the higher side. A lot of people tell me, I've had people tell me, oh, Jane's Addiction, sometimes nice. Ozzy. I get the Ozzy thing sometimes, and different things. So I think a lot of people said Uncle Acid, some something along that line. And I think my voice is definitely, like, I couldn't sing death metal or anything. Like, it is what it is. And I think it's cool because I think it fits. Luckily enough, I think it fits with my music that I write. It would be real shitty if I couldn't, match them up. But, like I said, going back to my good buddy Freddie from Son of Gray,
Right.
I mean, I'm blown away by their record that's come. I've been lucky enough to hear the whole thing, and like, I'm so proud of his vocals. I know he worked so hard. It was one of those things. He was in the same situation where he wasn't too confident in it, and they were working on it, but he did it. He worked his ass off. He worked with a dude that was helping him along the lines with some pitches and different things. And so like I said, I think a lot of people, can sing that maybe don't, haven't tried it or what have you because of whatever reason. But
right.
Sometimes you just got to find your voice, and with Gypsybyrd, it was one of those things where like I said, I didn't know if anybody would dig it or what. So you just go for it, but now that, Burn Ritual has a few, offerings out there, I still do kind of, have to get a little intimidated or what, and feel like I have to, fit a certain mold, I guess you could say, because it's important, I don't want to let anybody down. I first and foremost, I write music for myself because I have to, music has saved me so much times in my life, without music, it would be pretty sad for me, but like, it's an outlet for me personally for like when I have issues with depression or what have you. And, so that being said, I'm glad that I'm always learning. In other words, there's always room to get better and what have you, but I'm proud of what I've been able to accomplish so far. And I'm looking forward to the future stuff too. So I'm still looking forward. I think I have enough material right now for another Burn Ritual album, but, of course I'm looking forward to putting out the next Gypsybyrd album first, but,
yes.
But anyways, yeah, sorry to go off track, but yeah.
No, I appreciate it, man, because like, even, okay, so full disclosure, so I do this radio show on Cranium Radio, Sunday evenings, 6 to 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, each and every Sunday. And I put on some archived episodes, some old episodes of the podcast, and there is a part of me that I'm like, I'm cringing. I'm like, what voice was I using? What was I thinking? Where was it? And I've listened to some other podcasts, and they said, yeah, or even comics, and believe me, I'm no comic, but it's like, you have to find your timing, and you have to find your voice, and where are you comfortable, and where are you where you're like, personally, like, I'm accepting myself, and I know people are going to accept me. And even if they don't, whatever, the hell with them. I'm doing me, and that's it. And I feel so much better personally talking the way I would normally talk anywhere else. And my editor even told me, he says, I listened to the old episodes too. He says, I don't know, what were you in a basement? Were you like whispering? Like, what was it? I was living with other people that I didn't want to wake at the time. So maybe that was a part of it. I don't know. But yeah. And it's so liberating and so freeing. So but basically what I'm saying is, dude, continue this, whatever, wherever you felt you were on the void, I'm saying, please keep going. And we're going to keep going with The Conqueror. We have this kind of interlude, which is to me this kind of country desert folk into Evil Eye, which Evil Eye is, it kicks off some fuzzy, man, some huge fuzz. And the first thing that I thought of about Evil Eye is I'm just gonna kick back, take it in, and as I was, I felt this other subtle use of the keys. What can you tell me about it?
they kind of do. I think we talked about this one of the other times that we talked before about the love for albums that have those little in between jams. You know,
Right.
they're not full songs, but they're little diddles, and I put those on pretty much a lot of this stuff. I think even I can't remember what it's called, but the jam on the last Gypsybyrd album has like a little, but that one's got a little bit more to it. It's actually got vocals and what have you. But this song, I didn't really want it to be a song per se. I wanted it to be a song because I wanted it to have a title, but just to be a jam and just to be something that kind of brings the whole thing down for a second. If there would have been 9 songs on the album instead of 8, it probably would have been fit even more better. But like you said, it's almost like an intro to Evil Eye. But yeah, I wasn't really going for anything except for a chill jam, something that somebody could, maybe they were listening to the whole album and then got to that point and they wanted to roll up a joint. I don't know, take a little break.
Sure.
Take a little break from all the fuzz and all the heaviness and kind of just chill out for a second, and then boom, hit them with the last song, because Evil Eye was the last song I wrote for the album, and I felt it was the perfect song to put at the end. I didn't want the production of that song's a little bit different from all of the other songs. I wanted it to be a little bit more raw, and I wanted the vocals to be very distant, and even the drums are really more I don't even know what the word would be. I don't want to say lo-fi, but definitely not they weren't recorded the same way the drums were on the rest of the album. They were recorded a little bit more raw. I was just going for more of a raw track. You know, there is the keyboards. I've been putting a lot of keyboards in a lot of my stuff ever since I started, you know, I think maybe a year and a half or so, started dabbling in some stuff. I'm no keyboard player by any means, but I know chords and what have you. And I like messing around with it. I think it adds a lot of texture to songs. And so I believe going forward, there's going to be still continuation of that. And I know on the next Gypsybyrd, there's going to be a lot of keyboards and a lot of organ and stuff like that too. But yeah, Evil Eye was just going for it. Just wanted to kind of finish the album strong and mysterious. And
right.
I think it all ended up working out pretty good.
We'll get right back into the interview in just a minute, but first, I just gotta know how Tommy's doing.
Well, hey there, Tommy. What's with the long face? I don't know why I feel the way I do. I'm just not happy, Doc. Like, I don't feel right. Oh, I think you have anxiety, Tommy. You know, I know exactly what you need. I'm going to go ahead and write you a prescription
for a record player and some sweet new records at Glory or Death Records.
That'll get you back on your feet again, and right as rain in no time.
Glory or Death has all the best bands: Moss Generator, Red Wizard, Love Gang, Red Witch Johnny.
They'll get you feeling peachy keen again.
They even have an insane double album tribute to Thin Lizzy featuring High on Fire, Mothership, Duel, Worshipper, and tons more.
Wowee! Oh, that sure is keen.
Side effects may include extreme giddiness, bloodshot eyes, random cravings, forgetfulness, bleeding of the ears, confusion, nausea, constipation, diarrhea, depression, anxiety, alcoholism, ulcers, or death.
We have to talk about Mucho Printing. And by we, I basically mean Mucho himself. So take it away, Mucho.
Yeah, what's up, big dogs? This is Mucho Drums here to tell you a little bit about my new company, Mucho Printing. Now, I played in multiple bands for several years, and I know how important it is to leave your mark after any show. Even before hitting that first note, you want the crowd to know who you are and remember who's responsible for the sore necks the next morning. Presentation is an important factor in any band's mission to the top, and that's where we come in. Fully printed backdrops, removable bass drum covers, mesh cab covers, flags. These are just a few products that we can offer to you. We're based out of Los Angeles, California, and can ship anywhere in the United States. More importantly, our goal is to help promote bands off the stage as well. With every order, we'll post pictures of the prints, along with info about the band and any other advertisements you'd like us to include. Please check us out on Instagram and Facebook by searching Mucho Printing. Send us a message for any details. Hope all of you are staying safe, strong, and powerful out there. And remember, you win some, you lose some, but nothing beats getting some. Cheers, my friends.
Thank you for going over the tracks. I really appreciate it. I as soon as I got this, I was like, man, this is wow. I love the progression of it from Blood of the Raven. But the one thing that you said when we're talking about Conqueror here, you have this connection, I guess, in a way, to Eddie Van Halen. I mean, it might be a reach, or maybe it's not. I don't know. But in Van Halen, we had Eruption, and so many other tracks. Of their, they had that little, Spanish, was it Spanish Fly, I believe, yes, and so many others that were just these like kind of interlude tracks, and we just had that loss. I'm still kind of shocked by it, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I remember my wife telling me she had found out on the internet, and I was like, wow. But first thing that came to mind was I knew he had been sick for a long time.
Right.
And so it wasn't too much of a shock. I mean, it's always a shock when you lose a loved one, or even a famous person that you dig, or what have you, a celebrity or a musician, somebody that, I mean, I never met him or anything, but always, just like you and everybody else in the rock and heavy rock and metal world, is a huge loss. I was a fan. I wasn't the hugest Van Halen fan by any means, but I definitely had a couple of their albums growing up and dug them. And of course, you can't help but, I mean, once again, circling back to Corpus Christi, I mean, when we are a smaller town, we only had really one radio station that played rock music, and they played a shitload of Van Halen. I mean, they played a lot of AC/DC, those staple bands that you always hear. I guess they qualify as classic rock. So sure. I always heard those bands shitload growing up. But like I said, I had a few of their albums too, and but I'm not by any means a super huge fan of theirs. But I mean, he's obviously one of those guitar icons where, I mean, I'm a big fan of Michael Jackson and different things. Like, I'm a big fan of funk music. I have a big palette of music that I listen to. And so we were jamming Michael Jackson yesterday, actually, me and my family, because I was putting together an entertainment center that we had gotten through the internet and got delivered. So I was, putting something on that I could look at, and my son was digging on it, all the videos of, Michael Jackson made all those elaborate videos where it was almost like a mini movie. So
sure.
Hearing Beat It, which I think is the one that Eddie Van Halen played guitar on.
Yes.
And the famous where he said he never got paid for it kind of deal. But
how crazy.
You always hear that jam, and it's just like, when I hear that jam, of course, it's a famous jam, but I always picture him too because of the riff, and the little solo, and it's so much Eddie Van Halen too. It's like a signature, it's him, kind of deal.
Yeah, and that's just a mark of a killer guitarist. When you hear a riff and you're just like, it's them. You like, it's just. I don't know, man. I gotta admit, I'm kind of at a loss. Like, it's weird. It doesn't matter whether it was Van Halen or some other bands, like even like Pantera and stuff. I remember hearing them the first time I heard them, and I'm like, all right, it's good, it's okay. And the thing that was catching me was the vocals, and I didn't know. And the same with Van Halen. Like when I first heard it, I'm like, what is he doing? Is it? And I just didn't. And it was possibly because I was just too young to get it. And I know there's people that still don't care for that vocal. Well, that's too bad. I still think it's great. And Roth has a place in the rock and roll hierarchy like anyone else does, you know. But when you heard a Van Halen, you know, an Eddie Van Halen riff, like you knew it like right away. And the one thing that catches me, it doesn't matter whether it's him or whether it's Clapton or whether it's Hendrix or, you know, whoever the greats are, even Iommi. You know what they have, you know what they do, and you see them, you know, in the waves of emulation over the years of people that have just like taken it, and some of them have taken it to the next level, and some are just like complete, you know, fanboys of it, and they just they almost like note for note they consider, you know, they do the same riffs, but I don't know. I don't really know where I was going with that, but I just thought it was kind of interesting to see where it went after he did what he did and where metal and hard rock music went after it in terms of guitar work.
Oh yeah, well, you know, Eddie Van Halen was famous for making a lot of his own stuff. You know, he would tinker with his own guitars, you know, his pickups. He would tinker with his pedals, you know, and all kinds of things. So he always, you know, he famous for Van Halen songs would be a lot of those wacky sounds that he would, almost like Tom Morello kind of from Rage kind of deal, where he would, you know, you hear Rage Against the Machine albums, you hear Tom Morello, and he would be like, oh, okay, you know, you get it, because he had that kind of signature thing. And
yes.
So, yeah, definitely Eddie Van Halen's one of those guys where he could play on anybody's gear. If it wasn't his gear, of course he had his signature gear, but if he played on anybody's, you know, amp or what have you, he would still sound like Eddie Van Halen. He wouldn't sound like somebody else, you know what I mean?
You know, you talked during the album about some horror movies and, you know, schlock movies that we were discussing, and I know you got some kids now. Do they have any ideas of anything that they're interested in for Halloween? Are they dressing up?
Well, you know, like I said earlier, I know everybody got their own. And it's mainly because damn politics now. The politicians have made it so damn political now with the whole COVID thing. So I know everybody's either 50-50 on one side or the other, but
right. Mainly
my family, if I'm just speaking of my family, we're still laying pretty low. My wife's got asthma pretty bad, so we don't want to. We're still, I mean, we're not by any means like super bunkered down, but we definitely do a lot of the curbside stuff and stuff like that. So, but that being said, every year we do a pretty big Halloween display outside my house. You know, I've got all kinds of little props and what have you. And
right.
I know a lot of the neighborhood kids and stuff every Halloween come by, and they usually tell me, oh, dude, we always look forward to seeing your house, you know, made up and what have you. And since I've had my kids, you know, they're into a lot of the stuff, but they're also, because they're so young, they're kind of scared of some of the stuff that I've had. Like, I know I have this big Grim Reaper guy that my youngest is terrified by him, so he won't let me put him out. So it's in storage right now, and I'm like, well, maybe I guess when he gets older I can bring him back out. But we have our display out like we always do. It's a little bit smaller than usual, but on Halloween I'll bust out the fog machine and the nice. Different things. I usually have music going on and sound effects and what have you. But we'll definitely, what we're planning on doing is putting out like a table where if there is trick-or-treaters, they can come up and get it, and we'll, you know, obviously say Happy Halloween and, you know, greet them and stuff, but it'll be a social distance kind of thing, because I have no idea what it's going to be like. You know, every Halloween's different. Some year we have a lot of kids trick-or-treating in our neighborhood, and some years there's not that many, and we're like, well, we're sitting out there and we're like, well, let's pack everything up, you know, but I have no idea. But just my kids, if we're speaking just on my kids, no, I'm not taking them trick or treating. I know that some people might think, oh, that's horrible or whatever, but they'll have plenty of candy, you know.
Yeah.
And we're planning on doing some things here that kind of unusual that we've never done before. But like I said, we're living in a weird time. I'm not a doctor, so I kind of just take what I hear. I'm sure you do the same thing and everybody else. I take what I hear from the internet, the TV, and family members, and kind of just take it all in and make my own judgment on everything. But it's so hard now because, like I said, mainly the politicians and, you know, also people, you know, have so many different varied beliefs on everything. And
Yes,
I'm just looking forward to when COVID gets super, super better or actually kind of goes away. You know, I'm looking forward to those days because just like you said earlier, it sucks right now and nobody expected this to happen. And it can be really a bummer, but I try to make the best of it. And even with my kids, I know they get bummed out a lot because, you know, they can't do the things. Here in San Antonio, they even locked down the playground, so you can't even go to the parks where the playground equipment is. So it's all taped off. And my kids used to like to do that every weekend. We'd go to the playgrounds, and so I have to kind of talk to them, and it sucks because they're so young, you know, and I sometimes get bummed out about it, but it is what it is. We got to make the best out of it, you know, kind of deal.
And, you know, it's sad because they don't really know. I mean, personally, I don't know, man. I think I might have been in the minority. When I was a kid, I went trick-or-treating once, and I didn't understand it. I didn't feel comfortable with it. Now, looking back on it, I think I had anxiety about it because I had to go to a stranger's door, talk to them, ask them for something, and I really took the trick-or-treat literally. Like, if I don't get a treat, they're going to do something to me. And to me, it was horrifying. And I remember asking my mom, I was like, are we poor? Like, what is it? Like, why do I have to go to people's houses and beg for food? And she says, no, that's not it. It's what you do on this day. And I was like, well, what if I don't want to do it? And she says, so don't do it. And that was it. And I remember I was 4 years old, and I never went trick-or-treating again. Yeah, never went. No.
Wow.
I couldn't understand it. I was like, why do I have to beg for something when if I ask my mom nicely, you know, she could get it for me. So yeah, I know weird kid bullshit. I know. You know, one final thing I want to ask, because I am a dog owner and a huge dog lover. I saw this little animal that you have gotten. Is the name Baxter?
Yep.
What kind of dog is that?
He is a Chihuahua / we don't know.
He is adorable looking.
Yeah, thanks, man. Yeah, we're pretty psyched about it. It was one of those things where my wife's been wanting a dog for a while. We both had dogs, actually, when we met. But, you know, they passed on. One of them passed on, and one of them actually lives with my mom right now. It's been living with my mom for a while now, actually, probably. He's about as long as my son, so it's almost 6 years. My oldest son, when we had my first son, my dog wasn't used to being around kids. So, you know, there was a few episodes where it was almost a little couple bites or whatever, and it was a little scary.
Sure.
And but my dog was always super close to my mom, so it was a nice transition. My mom said, well, I'll take Chotzi is her name, and she's super old now though, and she's super mellowed out, but like at the time it was just not working out, so we didn't have a dog for a long time. We have cats, but you know, kids don't really take the cats like they do dogs, so
right.
they kept telling me, and I was the one that was in the one of the family that kept, basically saying no, because I wanted to make sure it was the right time, and then bunch of different reasons I don't have to bore you with. But anyways, we ended up pulling the trigger, so to speak, just recently, because like once again with COVID, everything changes, so we're here all the time, and sometimes, things get kind of stale, I guess you can say. And I know we've been doing a lot of moving things around the house to kind of make it different and
Sure.
lively, because you can get stuck in a rut. But I would hear my kids, oh, we want a dog, but Daddy don't want to let us, and I'd feel bad, I'm like, God. But then my wife's sister actually knew that we had been looking, and she had a friend. We were actually looking to foster a few dogs, or not few, but foster a dog from we had tried a few places, but man, it's so hard. They basically, it's like getting a job interview or something.
Yeah. And it mentally, it's hard. Like, you got to understand that you're not going to have that animal forever, and the kids have to understand that as well. That has got to be, I don't know, to me, I would say, no, I think I'll take this one too. I think I'll take this one too. It's just like, I don't think I could do it. I really don't.
Right. And so it was just, everything fell into place, I guess you could say. We weren't looking to get a super small dog like that, but
Right.
her sister knew somebody that had their dog had puppies, and it was one of those things. And hey, they're looking for people, and well, okay. And conversation, it took a while though. It took like 3 days for me to basically, because I was still a little reserved about it, but now I couldn't be any more happy. He's really awesome little dog. He's my wife was shocked, because she's like, oh, I'm kind of shocked because you've taken to the dog a lot more than I thought. And I'm like, well, I've always been an animal lover. I've always loved dogs and cats. I've always, ever since I was little, my parents always had either a dog or a cat, so I've always been around animals. But she was just shocked because I was so reserved about getting it to begin with. But I was like, no, and I think he's the perfect size for my boys.
Sure.
I did want a bigger dog, because I wanted a dog for the family and companionship and stuff like that. But I also wanted a dog, in case, protection or whatever, home
Sure.
protection or whatever.
Zombies.
But, yeah. So, but it ended up working out. And he's awesome. The whole family's super stoked about it.
Right on, man. Thank you for that. And, while we're talking about animals, last thing here, because you and I, man, I promised I would talk about this. Huge wrestling fans from back in the day. Okay, so let's talk about this for a while. I think the way you pronounce his last name was Laurinaitis. It was Joseph, Road Warrior Animal. I mean, the first time I saw the Road Warriors, man, I was blown away. I've never seen guys so big and so strong, and they were power wrestlers. And they, and Hawk could come flying off the top rope, and the full press slam that Animal could do, and the double clotheslines, all that. I think I sent you one of the pictures when I saw them live. Do you have any favorite era of the Road Warriors? Were you more in like NWA, WWF, or Japan wrestling? What was your? Did you have any favorite time watching the Warriors?
I did, and I think we talked about this a little bit last time. Was the fact that I guess because I got really into wrestling around, I want to say, I'm just guessing here, but I want to say somewhere around 87, 88,
Right.
That whole time. So I didn't see the Road Warriors super early on, like some people did, but I do remember when they hit WWF. Of course, that was obviously a little bit tamed down version. I mean, I just watched. I'm sure you did too, because we talked about this also last time. Was the little documentary series on Vice?
Yes.
And they did the Road Warriors, and that was so cool. I was looking forward to that episode. I knew they were going to do it, and I've actually watched it twice. I watched it the first time when it came out, and then I watched it after I heard about his passing, and I was like, I couldn't believe it, because just seeing the documentary was from this year, actually, and he's in it, and he didn't seem like, well, but then again, you never know, when somebody's time comes. But, we all knew about Hawk,
Right.
obviously having his problems with substance abuse and stuff like that. And but I was really shocked when I heard about his passing. But going back to your original question, sorry to dance around, but yeah, I do remember when they came to WWF, and it was like this huge thing because they went for the red and black vibe, instead of the all black with the chrome stuff. And
They
changed their
went
name
more
to
Legion of Doom. LOD.
Right.
Yeah.
They went Legion of Doom, and that was crazy because I was more of a WWF guy or kid, I guess you could say, because I did watch WCW, and I did watch the other. I can't remember what the territory was called here in Texas.
World
but
Class
the one with
Championship Wrestling?
Was that the one with Von Erichs and all them?
WCCW.
Okay.
Oh my God, dude! I was as a kid when I lived in New York. We had this thing, Madison Square Garden Network. I'm gonna totally fanboy out on this. I'm a mark for this. And there used to be on Saturday evenings, it was World Class Championship Wrestling from the Sportatorium in Dallas, Texas. And I was just fascinated by it because they had all these wrestlers that I didn't see, and some of them not so great, some of them great. Like the Missing Link was there, and Killer Tim Brooks, and they had Gary Owen, I think, was one of the managers, and I think that was the first place I saw Kamala and one of my favorites of all time, Bruiser Brody.
Oh yeah. Well, I used to go when I'd go spend the night at my grandma's house. I remember she didn't have cable. I believe she didn't have cable. I think she just had like rabbit ears or something. We used to pick up a station, and that's all they would show. It wasn't WWF or WCW. It'd be the one with the Von Erichs and all them. And being a later in the game, I guess, and I was big into I guess some people look as the late 80s as cheesy WWF. I see it as that's part of my childhood, but I mean, some of the gimmicks were a little bit kiddie, I guess you can say, with stuff like Tugboat and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But that being said, it was cool because I would go to my grandma's and we'd be like trying to find something to watch, wrestling. Oh, cool, wrestling. It'd be like the Von Erichs. And of course, the shit was obviously more low budget in the ring and all that. It wasn't huge, like a huge spectacle like WWF. But I would watch those dudes. And of course, the Von Erichs are Texas legends. Everybody knows. I would go to, the corner stores and the magazine section. There would be like wrestling magazines, and the Von Erichs would be all over them. And,
oh yeah.
Flair and all that. And the guys that weren't so WWF, even though Flair did end up going to WWF, but you know what I mean, like the Bruiser Brody, all those guys. Like, yeah, I would see guys that I'd be like, who the fuck are these guys? You know what I mean? Like cage mask with their fucking blood, just Cactus Jack or whatever shit just coming all, but we would rent wrestling videos like once again, going full circle what we were talking about earlier with horror movies. Like I remember my parents would say, "Hey, you're gonna go spend the night at your grandma's." Oh shit, like what are we gonna do? They would send us to the video store, and there was a video rental store called Showtime video.
Right.
And they had like the shit that, I don't even know if we had Blockbuster in Corpus. We had shit like Video Central, and they had the more mainstream stuff. But like, we'd go to Showtime Video, and we'd rent like super old stuff, like me and my brother, because we'd be like, well, that's what we were into, and we knew all the guys we would watch on USA or whatever it was at the time. I don't even have to get into the guys. Them, Ultimate Warrior, all those guys, Rick Rude, all them.
All of them.
Yeah, but we would rent even the old WrestleManias, like WrestleMania 1, WrestleMania 2, because we weren't exposed to that because we were too small, we were too little.
Right.
And so trying to catch up on all the history, it's hard because, so much, wrestling was huge in the 80s, with I believe even the small territories were big by default because of WWF and WCW being so big. And but yeah, going back to the Legion of Doom thing, because I was into WWF, my favorite tag team was Demolition. I always dug those dudes.
Okay.
I always dug the spikes and the face paint. I thought that was cool, even though looking back, you're like, it's a little weird. It's kind of Road Warrior,
Exactly.
Mad Max,
Yep.
Mad Max meets Dominatrix or something. But when LOA, or should I say the Road Warriors, but LOA, when they came to WWF, that was huge because I was like, holy fuck, these dudes look tough. Like, they were beyond big, obviously, but they just looked scary, and they always came to the ring looking all pissed off,
Every single time.
No smiles on their face. So, they dominated for what it was for a while,
Yeah, they had the one thing when every time they did a promo, it was also one of the most high. They were usually the most high energy promos that you'd ever see. And the one thing I liked is you had a 3-part promo. In some tag teams, there would be one spokesperson, but you'd have Animal talk, and then he would smack Hawk, and he'd say, tell him, Hawk. And then Hawk would hit Paul and say, tell him, Paul. And then so you had a three-peat. You had this like hat trick of people like doing this killer promo. And I just thought they were killer. Just dominated everyone. And when you talk about like Demolition Man, I mean Axe was I think he was the mass superstar way back, and the other guy Smash. He was I remember that was one of the Smash was one of the first people where I kind of looked at him and I'm like, hey, wait a minute, he was somebody else before. What happened? And he was Crusher Khrushchev with Ivan and Nikita Koloff in the NWA, and I'm like, wait, you mean they can be more than one person? What's happening here? And it was a total mind screw with my, I was out of my mind with it. I couldn't believe it. So either way, I just wanted to see what your take was on Animal passing. I mean, it's funny because he was 60 years old, and they say, well, natural causes. And at 60 in professional wrestling, now he might as well been like regular years 100.
Yeah, I know. This is unfortunate because so many have passed, and I guess you could say at an early age, but man, they went through, if you watch all the documentaries, I think a lot of people, unless you're super into wrestling or you were super into wrestling as a kid or as a teenager or whatever, you go back and you watch these documentaries now, you see how hard they lived. And especially, I know I told you last time that one of my favorite wrestlers was Jake Roberts, and he was one of the hardest living fuckers out there. And hearing his stories, it sounds like a lot of those dudes were living the similar vibe of just going from show to show so much and wrestling and not seeing their families. And having to, inject themselves with or take something to, take for the pain, but also to stay awake. And then, they're not getting much sleep, and then all the different things, it was just a recipe for disaster. And, I've tried to, I know you probably, I think you've told me, recently that do you still currently watch some wrestling? I can't remember if you told me.
I try every once in a while. Like my stuff is more the NXT, and I still I like the independent stuff. I haven't watched WWF in a long time, or WWE. That's how long it's been. But it's like I felt like a part of me died when ECW folded. And I know WWE tried to bring it back. It's not the same thing. There was a magic there, and an outlaw aesthetic that is proof. Because I was, it's funny. I was walking the dog. This is such a strange tangent, but I was walking the dog the other day, and I was thinking, like, I wonder how many people I can list that were in ECW that have died. And there were so many people. It was such a rogue space. And I know that a lot of them aren't doing well now. When you see the shoot interviews, some of them a little worse for wear. You know what I mean?
Oh, I love watching those shoot videos on YouTube. Yeah, those are great. And it's cool to hear those old stories. And yeah, you're right, unfortunately. But yeah, I don't watch. I've tried to watch some modern, I guess you could call it modern wrestling, or what's available now.
Right.
And I just can't get into it. I don't know what it is. I can't get into the characters. I like some of the cheesy shit from the past, I mean, but it's funny you said, it's funny when you see wrestlers change their gimmick. I remember there's a few guys that changed, and it's funny you brought up Smash, because later he turned into Repo Man.
Yes.
And I didn't know who he was at first, because I remember watching it and I'm like, this guy's kind of interesting, this is wild, and then I saw the tattoo on his arm. It was like the eagle thing, and I was like, holy shit, that's I knew who it was, and I was like, it was like a dead giveaway. And I was like, dude, but it's funny. Some of the guys, wrestlers, their gimmicks are somewhat similar, but they just change a little bit. Like, Ricky Steamboat, remember he turned into like the dragon or something, but he was still him. Like, obviously you knew by his face and everything, but like when they put on a costume or something, that's when it's sometimes hard to tell until you see something that reminds you, and then you're like, oh, okay. But some of those gimmicks work and some of them don't.
God, you're so right. Some of them definitely do not. It's like, look, like there was this thing called the Bunkhouse Stampede, and I remember Dusty Rhodes. He got banned for 30 days. He wasn't allowed to wrestle anywhere. But all of a sudden, the Midnight Rider appeared, and he had he had a mask on. I was like, dude, it's Dusty. Stop it. And then I remember even like they had. In WWF, when it was WWF at the time, they had the machines, and there was like, I'm kind of blanking on the whole concept, but I remember there was like a super machine, and it was Andre the Giant. Now, there's no one that looks like Andre the Giant. It's so obvious, what it is. But I guess there's a part of it where it's like, all right, I'm going to just suspend disbelief and just move forward with it. So, anyway, brother. Jake, thank you so much for hanging out with us. Jays, anytime we talk, I feel like I'm going to get this interview done in a solid 45 minutes, and then it's 2 hours later.
I know, but that's badass, man. And I appreciate you having me on always, man. And like you said earlier, you told me to keep doing my thing. You keep doing your thing, because I just listened to the foster mother interview the other day, and I was like, man, listening to all the different episodes I've listened to, you just keep getting better and better too at it. And I'm like, man, you keep doing it too, and doing this, the Doom Tomb and everything you do is so beneficial and it helps people like me and all the bands in the Doom and Stoner and heavy psych genre, man. We appreciate what you do, and it's an integral part of the whole thing. You know what I mean?
Like I said in part one, thank you so much to Jake from Burn Ritual, Gypsybyrd, and all his other projects. You never know what this guy is going to come up with next. I know he's working on new material, and I can't wait to see what he comes up with. Now, we have to play a track, and usually, I pick the track and we play it, and, no problem. But today, it's a little different. This is a special one because it's a call-out to Ian, the guy that edits this, from No Masters Audio. And this is the track that he suggested. So let's play it. This is Mark of the Witch.
She is good to judge.
So, I guess the question is, did Ian pick the right track? I certainly think he did. If you disagree, please message us at doomtombpodcast@gmail.com. You can listen to new and archived episodes of the podcasts. It's doomtombpodcast.com and across social media at doomtombpodcast. Do you want to do an interview? Do you have something you want reviewed? Do you have a submission? Please send it our way. We love having it, and we'd love to have you on the podcast. We thank you so much for joining us. Don't forget about Cranium Radio, 6 to 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, each and every Sunday. All of these links that we talk about, they're in the show notes. Check them out when you can. And until that next time, meantime and in between time, stay healthy, stay happy, and above all, stay heavy.